In not so surprising moves, the New York Islanders trade their first round pick, 13th overall, to the Montreal Canadiens for a puck moving defenseman. We will break down the trade and talk about where Alexander Romanov fits into the Islanders lineup. All that and a whole lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to the weekend edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Gil Martin, so glad to be with you. And thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. We have got a lot to talk about. The Islanders not making a pick in the first round this year, trading that pick. But I think Islander fans are going to be very excited about the player they acquired. And we'll be breaking all of that down a little bit later on in the show. But first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to talk about on the show, feel free to shoot us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we are happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Isles. And you can follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings throughout the offseason. We got day 2 of the draft still to come, trade rumors, free agency right around the corner, anything happening to the New York Islanders between now and the start of training camp. We will have it for you right here on Locked On Islanders. And, you know, we were talking yesterday, right before the draft. And one of the last things I said was that if I had any insight, Lou Lamoriello with the Islanders in win now mode is probably going to trade that first round pick. And while there were a lot of other deals made, no surprise that the Islanders did pull the trigger on a deal. They trade the 13th overall pick to get Montreal Canadiens defenseman Alexander Romanov. And here's the thing that I love about this deal. Romanov is 22 years old. He is someone who already has 4 seasons of pro experience. He's a left-handed shot. He's got pretty good size at 6'1", 210 pounds. And while his numbers are not yet jaw-dropping off the chart, like, wow, look at what this guy did. Number one, he is very inexpensive. He is a restricted free agent this year, but at the same time, he has not played enough NHL games in order to have arbitration rights. So the Islanders will be able to re-sign him inexpensively before the season starts, and that is a plus. Number 2 is that here is a player who has not yet fully made the adjustment from the longer, wider rinks in Europe and the KHL to the NHL, so that at the age of 22, he has yet to reach his full potential. But now the Islanders have another puck-moving defenseman who can help this team make the transition from defense to offense that they struggled with far too often in last season. And since they really had to trade Nick Leddy this past year and Devon Taves the year before. So all of a sudden, now the Islanders add the skill. They did not take a big cap hit, and some of the other names that a lot of people were talking about, your Chychrins and some of the more well-known and experienced defenseman, you would have been paying $3.5, $4.5, $5 million a year. You're going to pay a fraction of that with Alexander Romanov, and he still has the potential to really develop into an even better player than he already has been in the NHL. Last year with the Canadiens, played in 79 games, 3 goals, 10 assists, 53 penalty minutes. He was a -9 plus minus. But if you think about it, considering how badly the Canadiens struggled over the course of the season, that -9 is looking pretty darn good. Now, he twice represented Russia in the World Junior Championships, both in 2019 and 2020. He had 8 points, 1 goal, and 7 assists in 7 games in 2019, was a +12. And then in 2020, 1 goal, 5 assists, 6 points in 7 games, 2 penalty minutes, and a +6. In the KHL, he was always a plus player. And when you look at his skill set, the scouting report on Romanov, a highly regarded defenseman coming from the KHL to the NHL because of his skating, poise, and ability to make a good first pass. That good first pass is exactly what the Islanders lacked after trading Taves and Leddy. And as much as I like Zdeno Chara as a person and as a hockey player over the course of his career, he didn't fit the mold of replacing Nick Leddy skill-wise, and it really hurt the Islanders that they didn't bring in somebody who could. Now you've got this guy. Now, he is still trying to refine his game and get used to the smaller North American rinks that I talked about. But here it is. He is a smooth skater with terrific lateral mobility who can make a solid breakout pass. He is very mobile, can play on either side, so he can play left or right defense, and should improve as he gets stronger and more accustomed to the NHL. Now, here's the next part that I think you're absolutely going to love. Loves physical contact. And last year, 227 hits, 19th among NHL defensemen. So not only are you getting a guy who can move the puck and skate the puck out or pass the puck out, you're getting a guy who had 227 hits and 144 block shots and is just scratching the surface of his NHL ability as he adjusts to life in North America and to the more narrow NHL rink. For a team that is in win now mode, you could have taken the highest ranking player available at 13, and it wouldn't have helped the Islanders to win now. But now, with this trade, Lou Lamoriello has gotten the Islanders a player who will help now, who won't cost them a lot of money, and will be able to contribute even more in the future, assuming the Islanders can lock him up to a new deal, and they should be able to do that before the start of the regular season. So I like this move for a number of reasons, and there's still more to talk about. When we come back, we will discuss where Alexander Romanov fits into the lineup for the New York Islanders, how the pairings may look on this team defensively, and we'll talk a little bit about day 2 of the draft. We'll fill in the gaps as to exactly what the Islanders gave up and what they acquired in this trade. So a lot more to get to on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news. including Major League Baseball. You've got NHL futures, NBA futures, NFL futures, lots going on right now. And BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. And betonline.net remains the best place for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, tennis, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So let's flesh out this trade first. I mean, I think we should discuss that. The Islanders got Romanov and a third-round pick, 98th overall, so very early in the third round, in exchange for that 13th overall pick. So I like the fact that here's an Islanders team that we've discussed. You know, the Hockey News had them ranked 30th out of 32 teams as far as their prospect pool is concerned. And now you add Romanov, who's an under 25 player, and you add another pick in this draft to make up for not having that first round pick. No, you're not going to get as good a player in the third round, 98th overall, as you would have gotten 13th overall. But you know what? Lou Lamoriello is in the Hockey Hall of Fame for a reason. And he always seems to have one or two mid to late round gems that he finds in any given NHL draft. So to add a third round pick, I think that is definitely a good little bonus here. And I'll say this. I was speaking to Laura Saba of Locked On Canadiens. I was doing some hosting for Locked On NHL tonight. That's why I wasn't as active on Twitter during the draft. But she said that Romanov is a fan favorite in Montreal because of his style, his physicality, his skating ability, his ability to pass, his willingness to block shots. The fact that this guy is not going to be a liability defensively really helps this team. And again, you look at the defense for the Islanders right now. You still have Pelican Pulak as your top pairing. You still have Noah Dobson as your primary puck-moving defenseman. And now you have Romanov as your secondary puck-moving defenseman. You add Scott Mayfield, who is still inexpensive and in the final year of his contract. And all of a sudden, now maybe you could afford to bring back Andy Green as your seventh defenseman. You still have the possibility of Robin Salo coming up this year. You still maybe can bring in another defenseman on the defensive side of things as a possibility, but you're not spending a lot of money to do that. And that is a big bonus for the Islanders. All of a sudden, the defensive side has a lot more ability and potential, and maybe you don't need to bring Robin Salo along as quickly now as a result of adding Romanov. I really like this deal for a team that's in win-now mode, and I think Islander fans are really going to take to what Alexander Romanov brings to the table. Now, day 2 of the draft still to come. I still think that defense, as far as restocking the defensive pool, prospect pool in the organization, is going to be the most important thing for the Islanders. Not that they necessarily have to use their second-round pick on a defenseman or the new third-round pick on a defenseman. No, you don't have to do that. You go with the best player available. We know the Islanders need to add some skilled forwards to the list. We know that out of their top 10 prospects, only 2 of them are defensemen, and the highest ranked one is 5th, and that's Bodie Wild, who had a falling out with the organization last year. So I think defenseman is priority one. Restocking the forward pool is also important, but most importantly is take the best player available, restock the prospect pool for this team. And with this trade, you help to do that by adding the third round pick, and you give this team a little more flexibility as far as figuring out, how to do that. So Lou Lamoriello, now we have a second round pick, a third round pick, and day 2 of the draft. I'll add this. Don't be surprised if Lou Lamoriello is still making more trades on day 2 of the draft, because this Islander team, again, in win now mode. Could you see a trade with Anthony Beauvillier and maybe another draft pick to try to get that forward that this team needs to add? I could completely see that as a real possibility. So day 2 of the draft, going to be a very active one, I think, for the Islanders, whether it's picks, trades, or, in my opinion, most likely both. But so far, Lou Lamoriello, I'll say this. I know he has fans out there who are critical of him, who, didn't like the fact that Fiala was not an Islander, that DeBrincat got traded and he's not an Islander. And yeah, I had one fan contact me on Twitter and say, hey, we could have matched that. We could have gotten that 40-goal scorer, and I would have been happy giving up the 13th pick and a prospect for it. But let's see what Lou Lamoriello has up his sleeve for day 2. I know this team is not done. And I think what we'll see on day 2, either the Islanders will make the trade that brings them the goal-scoring forward that they're looking for, or they will make a deal that frees up enough cap space that allows them to sign a free agent, an impact free agent. Now, one other thing I heard tonight, the Blues, Vladimir Tarasenko still wants out of St. Louis. That's a big cap hit, but it's also a very talented player. And if you could maybe make a deal with the Blues to add Tarasenko, boy, would that fit the bill for the Islanders as far as a goal scorer is concerned. I like the move that Lou Lamoriello made by acquiring Romanov, and I know that the hockey moves that Lou Lamoriello said were coming this offseason were not even close to done. So a lot more coming for the New York Islanders, whether it's tomorrow at the draft or over the next week or so when free agency gets underway. There's a lot more going on, and we will have it all covered for you throughout the offseason right here on Locked On Islanders. When we come back, we'll do our Islanders birthday of the day, a defenseman who played with the Isles in the mid-2000s. We'll have him, plus some final thoughts as we head into day 2 of the NHL draft. All that and more still to come on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And tomorrow, Saturday, will be the 38th birthday of former Islanders defenseman Chris Campoli. Campoli, drafted in the 7th round by the Islanders in 2004, had a great final season in juniors with the Erie Otters of the OHL, 20 goals, 66 points in 67 games, turned pro the year after that and made his Islanders debut in 2005, 2006. And that was his best offensive season in the league, his rookie year. In 80 games, 9 goals, 34 points. Was an Islander again in 06, 07, and 07, 08. And then late in the 08, 09 season, the Islanders trade him to the Ottawa Senators. He spent a couple of years in Ottawa, then went on to Chicago and Montreal before finishing his professional career in Europe. both in Switzerland and in Sweden. For his career, Campoli played in 440 NHL games, scored 35 goals, 146 points, and an even 200 penalty minutes. Add 18 playoff games, 5 of those coming with the Islanders. He had 1 goal and 5 points. The goal and one of the assists came with the Isles back in 2007. And Campoli was sort of that number two-way defenseman who could give you a little bit of offense, but wouldn't hurt you very much defensively. We're going to go back and look at one of Chris Campoli's better games with the Islanders. We take you to October 18th, 2007, at the Verizon Center in Washington, D.C. Rick DiPietro, the goalie for the Islanders. Ole Kolzig in the net for the Washington Capitals. And the Islanders get on the board first. Sean Bergenheim scoring late in the first period. His first goal of the year, Miro Shatan and Joseph Vasicek with the helpers at 15-17. Islanders up 1-0. In the second period, the Islanders extend their lead. They get a power play chance. Ole Kolzig off for roughing. Victor Kozlov off for tripping, a 5-on-3. Bill Guerin makes them pay. His first of the year on the power play. Chris Campoli and Brian Berard with the assist. Campoli's first helper of the night for our Islanders' birthday of the day. After 40 minutes, Islanders 2, Capitals nothing. But Washington gets back into the game. Alex Ovechkin, who else? His fourth of the year from Joe Motzko at 141 makes it 2-1. And then Thomas Fleischmann ties it at 6:14. Nicholas Backstrom and Brian Pothier with the assists. We're even early in the period at 2-2. But Chris Clark of Washington heads off for tripping. Brian Berard on the power play for the Islanders, his second. Chris Campoli and Miro Shatan with the assist at 9:39. Isles up 3-2. Then Milan Yursina of Washington off for holding. Guerin on the power play, his second of the game. Campoli and Berard with the assist. That's 3 assists for our Islanders' birthday of the day. Chris Campoli, and the Islanders have a 2-goal lead. Bill Guerin completes the hat trick, his third of the year and third of the game. Mike Comrie and Chris Campoli with the assists at 18-26. Excuse me. Islanders win this one 5-2. But for Chris Campoli, our Islanders' birthday of the day, 4 assists in this game. He had 1 shot on goal, but really helped the Islanders, leading the team in points in this game. Bill Guerin with the hat trick. 18 minutes and 37 seconds of ice time for Campoli. Only 1 shot on goal, but when you have 4 helpers in a game, who's complaining? Islanders outshot 29-21 in this one, but Rick DiPietro making 27 saves. So a career high 4 assist game for Chris Campoli. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day, and we wish him all the best on his 38th birthday on Saturday, and many, many happy and healthy more for Chris Campoli. It's going to be a great weekend for the Islanders, a busy weekend. We will cover day 2 of the draft and any trades or deals or moves that this team makes. I am sure we will have something to talk about, because I really don't imagine Lou Lamoriello standing still. This team is clearly in win now mode, and this team will make more hockey moves, I think, before this weekend is over, and they may lead to even more moves. We'll have it all covered for you here on Locked On Islanders. Thanks again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you a daily 30-minute podcast on all things NHL all year long. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute NHL podcast. That does it for this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.